Hey there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. It's Superfly Comics Guy, and I just got finished reading the Venom by Donny Cates Omnibus. So that means I am here now to tell you a little bit about it. We'll be going through the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and a flip through where I can share my thoughts, opinions, and recommendations on this book. So if you enjoy the video at any point, you know how to show it. As always, feel free to leave your own thoughts down there in the comments. And remember, when we hit 1K subs on this channel, guess what? I will be finally filming a omnibus collection tour for you guys. So you have that to look forward to if we reach that goal. But for now, let's dive into this really fantastic series. I can't wait to tell you more about this and show you why Venom is the comeback king. Let's go. Alright guys, so here we're starting off with the direct market variant dust jacket for this book. There is a standard cover available, which you can choose, but as soon as I saw this cover, I knew this was the one I wanted to get. Just such a cool, imposing depiction of Venom. The pose he's doing, just snarling like that, it just reminds me of something I would see from like Ultimate Spider-Man, for example. So, you know, anything that reminds me of that series, very good news. Here is the spine for this chonker of a book. Very thick book. Love that Venom font. So 90s, so iconic. Great picture of Venom down there. And then the back. Oh boy, there he is. The King in Black himself. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Cover price of this book is $125 US, $156.25 Canadian. And this omnibus collects the Venom, the 2018 series 1 through 35, the Venom Annual from 2018, number 1, Web of Venom, Web of Venom, Carnage Born, Web of Venom, Wraith, Absolute Carnage 1 through 5, King in Black 1 through 5, and material from Free Comic Book Day 2019, Free Comic Book Day 2020, Incoming number 1, and Carnage Black, White, and Blood number 2. Now you might think, holy crap, that's a lot of content, and yeah, it is, but man, this book is one of the reasons why I love the omnibus format so much. The way all these contents and stories are mapped is perfect. It's the perfect reading order, so you don't have to worry about any of that nonsense of like tracking down issues or flipping through the book. The way this book is presented as is just perfect. But let's have a look under the dust jacket, see what awaits us there. And there we go. So as I said in my haul video when I picked this book up the first time, that is a goddamn symbiote dragon. Yup. These are the kind of heights that this book and story goes to. Love this spread page, and there's a lot of good spread pages to be found within the pages of this book. So why don't we start flipping through, and I can talk a little bit more about that. Okay guys, flip through time. Got some black bookend pages here, very symbiote-y, very appropriate. Nice big old picture of Venom's snarling face there. We do have a credits page, which is very nice to see. It's not a table of contents, not quite as good as a table of contents, but, you know, at least you got a little bit of a mapping of the stories you're getting in here. Some of the creators responsible for it. You got a bit of a foreword here by Donny Cates, the writer of this series, talking a little bit about, you know, the inception of this series, the idea behind it, how he got into Venom, why he was so adamant about writing Venom. There's you know, it's a touching little introduction here. I quite liked it. You know how it goes. I'm gonna try to avoid spoilers as much as I can. Try to give you just the gist of the story, so you know what to expect. But yeah, why did I start reading this series? Well, one reason really. Towards the end of October and pretty much all of November, I was playing the new Spider-Man 2 video game, and holy crap, did I love that game. And just, oh God, I could go on and on about that game, but I'll try not to. But long story short, I was curious to try this run because of the way Venom in that game was depicted and handled. I felt that, well, I could recognize that in that game, the way Venom was handled was, they were drawing a lot of inspiration from the stuff that happened in this recent Venom run here. So once I finished that game, I was just so hyped up that I just wanted to read more. So I figured what better place than to dive into this series here. So, well, where do we find ourselves? Well, I mean, you probably, if you don't know who Venom is, I'm sure you know about, Spider-Man's black suit. So, Spidey got that black suit ages ago, eventually discovered it was alive. It was a creature called a symbiote that was affecting his behavior in a pretty negative way. So he separated himself from the symbiote suit, but that symbiote eventually bonded with Eddie Brock, and together the symbiote and Eddie became the creature, I suppose, known as Venom. And, well, Venom's been depicted as sometimes a villain of Spidey, sometimes they team up, sometimes he goes on his own and does kind of an anti-hero thing. This run definitely leans more into the anti-hero side of Venom. But like I said, where are we? So Eddie discovers something is going wrong with the Venom symbiote. He finds he's losing control of it. He's hearing strange voices that are uttering things like, God is coming. And then a goddamn symbiote dragon appears and starts terrorizing the city, basically. And what it all boils down to is that, you may have thought that the black suit was the first symbiote. And, for the longest time in comics, it was. But no, this run reveals that the symbiote and the symbiotes have a long, ancient, complex, pretty much primordial history. Oh God, there's that spread page. Jesus Christ. This book has some phenomenal spread pages in it. The art by Ryan Stegman is just chef's kiss. But anyway, God is coming. What does that mean? Well, turns out that, as you saw on the back of the dust jacket, there's this new character introduced by this run known as Null, the god of the symbiotes, the king in black, the lord of the void. And, this story retcons actually some stuff about the symbiotes from stories past. Namely things like the planet of the symbiotes, that Clintar planet. But I didn't really mind the retcon so much because what this story does with the history of the symbiotes is just so cool. So, as long as it's justified, then I can appreciate a retcon. Oh, there's Null. So yeah, this ancient being, turns out the planet of the symbiotes is actually a prison that's been housing him and trying to keep him dormant away from the rest of the universe. Because if he wakes up, he's gonna mess stuff up. Null is crazy. He can assume control of pretty much any symbiote that's connected to his hive mind. Now, the Venom symbiote is not connected to his hive mind. It's actually a bit of an outlier. But the whole idea here is that, that prophecy, that God is coming, almost warning. Yeah. From that point on, Venom starts gearing up for battle. And a lot of this run is the buildup and anticipation to that arrival of Null. It's pretty cool. Like, there's scenes in here where Venom's like gearing up with various weapons and stuff. And if you've read like the early Spawn comics, it kind of reminded me of that. Early 90s. Yeah, look at him. Does that not remind you of like Spawn, for example? And one of the biggest things in here is that there are these sort of ancient pieces of the symbiote known as the Codex. And, if those are collected and used in a certain way, then Null will be awakened, and then he'll want to wreak some havoc. So Venom wants to prevent that. And, Venom might seem like a cheesy, edgy 90s character, and to be fair, he is a little bit like that. He's a product of his time, but with this run, they flesh Venom out surprisingly well. Eddie Brock has a pretty tragic backstory, and through these pages, you get to find out a little bit more of his past, his family, why he cares so much about protecting the innocent, because that's one of Venom's big things. He's the lethal protector, hence an anti-hero. The way he goes about it is pretty extreme, but he does still want to protect people. In order to get help against this potential invasion by Null, Eddie's going to have to consult some pretty, he's going to have to take some pretty desperate measures. At some point, even consulting this, for lack of a better term, like almost like evil version of Reed Richards from another universe, from the Ultimate Universe, known as the Maker. He was a really creepy character. But speaking of character relationships and stuff like that, you also get the relationship between Eddie and the symbiote fleshed out a little bit more. Because they've been bonded for so long. Eddie and the symbiote, have been Venom for so long. Well, I'll ignore the other hosts who have worn the Venom symbiote for now. But when I think of Venom, I think of Eddie Brock. And you get to sort of explore this sort of toxic, manipulative relationship between Eddie and the symbiote. It's not all brotherly love, so to speak. But ultimately, at the core of it, Eddie and the symbiote do care for each other. There's some really cool callbacks in this story to Agent Venom. I believe that was Rick Remender's series. That's pretty cool to see. Speaking of character writing, another thing that surprised me is that's really well done here too. This story has surprisingly a lot of heart to it. Eventually this character, this kid named Dylan, appears, and he and Eddie's got a bit of an unexpected connection to this kid. He ends up having to sort of provide for him. Granted, he's not very good at it, but he's trying. If you enjoyed stories like The Last of Us, for example, it kind of has that vibe to it, where you have this character who's not really sure how to take care of a kid. Eddie Brock isn't really sure how to take care of this kid, but he wants to. He wants to at least try. And Dylan's also, Dylan has a very important part to play in this story, because all that stuff about God is coming and the symbiotes and all this. Dylan's got an unexpected connection to all of that stuff going on as well, which I don't want to spoil. But he ends up being a really fascinating character in his own right, too. Another one of the stories you get in here is Absolute Carnage, of course. And, if you don't know who Carnage is, the Carnage symbiote is an offspring of the Venom symbiote. It bonded to an absolute maniacal serial killer known as Cletus Cassidy. Just this, they form Carnage, this being just bent on chaos and violence. Oh yeah, there's Carnage. Look at him. What Carnage's goal is here, in this story, Absolute Carnage, he becomes this mega powerful version of himself, and he wants to gather those pieces of the symbiote, that codex that I mentioned, because he wants to reconnect with the hive mind, and he wants to unleash Null. Fitting with Carnage's just motivation of chaos and violence and an absolute anarchy. That's his goal, and then, it leads to Spidey and Venom having to team up, and I always love it when that happens. I love when Spider-Man and Venom have to just put their differences aside and team up. But that story is really, really good, and man, you just get to see how absolutely terrifying Carnage can be, and the art in there is fantastic too. But that's the thing about this story, man. It's just full of breakneck pacing. It's always moving forward. There's always an immediate threat that needs to be dealt with. It's rarely interrupted. There's rarely gives you a chance to catch your breath. Like, just look, there's fire everywhere. There's chaos. But, you know, occasionally it'll get interrupted. Like, there's a story in here involving an alternate reality Earth that Eddie gets sent to, and he has to sort of help out with a situation over there. Whenever a story does that, you know, like basically hard interrupts the main plot and then goes to like a different world or something, I always get worried that it's just going to be like a pointless distraction, just trying to buy time for the main story. But I actually ended up enjoying that too, that little side story. But then eventually, yeah, look at Carnage, so freaking cool. Love the art. Eventually, we get to King in Black, which is basically the main event of this omnibus. It's the thing we're building to. And, well, without spoiling anything, King in Black, as the story's been building up to, Null is here. And man, he does not hold back. That is, talk about a crazy event. There's some brutal fights. There's some absolutely brutal deaths, which I don't want to spoil. The hive mind gets more fleshed out. It reminds me a lot of, it feels like it has a lot of Matrix influences. If you've read this story and how the hive mind works, maybe you'll understand what I mean. But man, the scale of the King in Black story is just insane, because we end up having to involve the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the mutants and the X-Men, Silver Surfer, vampires, Celestials get involved. It's just this huge event. And it just feels so massive, all these different characters involved. But at the same time, at the center of it all, it still focuses on Venom. And man, like I said, you're going to see through that story why Eddie Brock, why Venom is the comeback king, the man of 1,000 second chances. Really fantastic stuff. But man, I just love the art in this omnibus. Like I said already, there's so many incredible spread pages, so many instances of super creative paneling. A lot of the art is done by Ryan Stegman, but you also get other guest artists in here like Mark Bagley, Iban Coelho. Really nice stuff. There was an annual in here where I wasn't really a fan of the art, but for the most part, I really liked the art in this book. And another thing it does really well is just like there's some really cool character designs in here. There's this bit early on in the book that ties into the War of the Realms story, and Eddie gets like this super cool like upgraded Venom suit that's like based on magic. That was really cool to see. But anyway, let's take a look at the extras section so I don't spoil too much more. God, look at Carnage. So freaking cool. All right, so the extra section. Now, it's not too big. This book is quite large, so the extra section, there isn't really that much to it. There's some variants, but actually you'll find that a lot of the variants and extras are actually found on the opposing side of the issue covers as you're reading through the story. I do wish they would have been like bigger covers rather than doing 4 covers per page, just because, I don't know. One of the reasons I get omnibuses is because I like oversized art. I like being able to appreciate the art. But there you go. You got a lot of variants there and connecting covers. And yeah, some of the character designs I mentioned, costume designs, really cool. What's also pretty cool is you get this section here, Ravencroft Files, on characters such as Cletus Cassidy and Norman Osborn. Who else? Francis Barrison in here as well. So that's pretty cool to see. And also what was really cool, oh yeah, you get some like goofy little joke stories in here, cartoony stuff. What's also really cool is you get a Venom cover gallery, 200 issues of Venom since his first solo series here, Lethal Protector, and then on over the years. And then culminating, obviously, in this series here, which we have in this book. So very, very cool, but not too big of an extra section. But now let's talk about build quality. Oh boy. Well, 1,352 pages is what we have, but I'll be honest, the build quality is pretty rough on this book. There's that eye that we're getting. This is really the best I could get it to be. After several instances of stretching and a full read-through, that's really all we could get. The binding is very, very tight. Here's a spread page example, and you can see we're losing quite a bit to the gutter. There's a substantial amount of gutter loss to this book, which is unfortunate because of the sheer amount of spread pages that you get in this book. It's a shame that you tend to lose so much of the art because of that. What's good is that I really didn't notice much page bleed in this book. Even though this book does come from the EMAC printer in Turkey, because of so many dark colors, I very rarely noticed any instances of color seeping through the page. Like I said, one of the things I love most is just the fantastic mapping of the issues. You know, the Venom series intertwined with Absolute Carnage and King in Black. The way it's all laid out for you is so perfect. The way it hops around from issue to issue, the reading order is perfect. You could read this from front to back and understand the story no problem. So yeah, my biggest gripe definitely would be the build quality and the binding, because it is very, very difficult sometimes to deal with. But alright guys, here we are towards the end of the review here, so that means it's time for some closing thoughts. And if it wasn't obvious enough already, I am totally recommending this book. This was one of my favorite books I've read all year. I mean, I love the Venom character already, but I haven't read his other solo material yet. And I still had a really easy time going through this. So, you know, I don't think you need to have that much prior knowledge going into this. This is pretty okay for a newcomer to jump into. If you enjoy the Venom character already, then yeah, absolutely check this out. If you enjoyed the Spider-Man 2 PS5 game, oh my god, yeah, I think you'll definitely enjoy this. Or if you're just looking for an action-packed, just breakneck pacing story with so many different characters and things going on. Is it the deepest story out there? Not necessarily, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have depth. There's a lot of surprisingly good character writing in here, whether it's between Eddie and his past, or Eddie and the symbiote, or Eddie and this new character Dylan, Eddie interacting with other heroes. It's really well done, and the way this book is packaged, you get the whole story between the span of these two covers here. It's just incredible. Definitely recommend this book if you haven't picked it up already. But that's been my review of the Venom by Donny Cates Omnibus. So you let me know what you thought about this book if you've read it, any of the series inside. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave those down below. But thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope to catch you in another video real soon, so you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.
We are Venom.
Oh, God. How does he do that voice? Jesus Christ. Oh.